Good evening, Marianas, and welcome to our studios here on the 7th floor of the DNA building. I'm Troy Torres, and joining me in studio, we are so honored and so proud to have Guam's first elected Attorney General, Doug Moylan. General.
Hafide.
Good evening.
I'm the one that's honored. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, General. You were elected in 2002 as Guam's first elected Attorney General. You took office in 2003. You left office in 2007, and what a legacy you left behind. You left some big shoes to fill, and I kind of feel like no one's ever been able to sort of reach that kind of gravitas that you brought to
that's very
the
gracious
office.
of you to say that. It was our team. We put together a good team.
You were tough on crime.
Exactly.
I remember that you were tough on crime. You were very tough on corruption, and those are the two main subjects that we want to talk about tonight. Can we just get straight to it?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, as a citizen, I have my take on violent crime in our community and how actually it's not even just recently, but it seems like you open a newspaper or you go to Kandit or you watch KUM or whatever, and you see just this bloody mess happening in our island and these increases in sex crimes.
Murders.
And murders. From your perspective, not just as an attorney, but also as Guam's first elected Attorney General and the only challenger to Attorney General Levin Camacho, tell us what you see when it comes to violent crime in this island.
It is out of control.
Okay.
And being on this campaign trail, so they speak, we politicians sort of thing, that is exactly what people are saying out there. And you forgot the social medias. When you open up social media and then you see these home video being picked up, and the criminals out there, the burglars, are indignant. They don't care that you've got all the security system up. They go straight for your house, your property, endanger your family by the break-ins. It is, I believe, out of control. I'm not trying to over-dramatize this. I think the public is telling me that it's out of control.
So, General, what are you going to do about it if you're elected?
First, we have our team. I've been speaking with attorneys, let alone the ones that have left this Attorney General's office because of his management, and are willing to come back to serve the public again, the people of Guam. We all use that word, people of Guam. It's become maybe overused, but in this case, that is the client for an attorney, and the law makes it very clear that the elected Attorney General represents the people of Guam. That's how the criminal cases are filed, the people of Guam. We will bring back the prosecution. They've lost at least half. They had 21 before.
More than half.
More than half,
yeah.
Right. And they're down to, from all indications, 7 or 8.
Mm-hmm.
I know the chief prosecutor is now off island. So you can't run, and that's this nomenclature that they use, general, the attorney general. The attorney general can't do all this himself. He needs to put together the deputies and then the staff under them, whether that's going to be the investigators or the clerks that are typing out the documents. But without your attorneys, you are not going to succeed as an attorney general. When he started, I believe Elizabeth Barrett Anderson, the last attorney general, handed over a prosecution division that was working. And you had some highlights of individuals that were standing out there. And after 4 years, he's gone from 21 down to less than Guam needs in order to stay safe. That's clear.
Well, we see a situation in court, and so it's not just our sources telling us about what's going on over at the Attorney General's office and how the prosecution division is being treated sort of as a bastard stepchild, for lack of a better term. Go ahead.
We as people all want to be treated with respect. That's how I was raised. That's how you are, the people that are raised in good families. When you're an attorney, you must respect your colleagues, because we're no different. We all passed the Guam bar. We're all here serving the people of Guam. So what I understand is going on in that AG's office is he has no respect for his colleagues, which are
in the prosecution division.
In the prosecution division, and other divisions as well.
Okay.
So at this point, I don't say this in order to belittle the Attorney General, because he is in a position that commands respect. He was elected by the people of Guam, and by virtue of that election, we must respect him. But if your house is getting robbed, if your family is being assaulted, you have to focus upon what's the problem. And after 4 years, his office is worse off than when he took it, in my opinion. and the prosecutors leaving is the most visible problem that we see, and the most dangerous.
Let's talk about that danger. Yesterday, we ran the magistrate's report of, I can't remember his last name, but he is a person who, against whom new allegations of, I think it's beating his girlfriend or something like that. But he's on pretrial release for doing the same thing. I don't know if it's the same victim, but you see this over and over again. And whether it's with robberies and burglaries, with strangulations, assault, aggravated assaults, people are getting released, and people are getting pled out all over the place. One, why is that? Why do you think that is happening? And two, what can you say if you're elected Attorney General to our audience that will make them feel better that the criminals will not be out there?
Troy, we begin our discussion with that constitutional statement that everyone is innocent until proven guilty. Okay? So when these police reports come up, the police obviously are taking someone in, and then they have to establish the basic probable cause, reason to believe a crime was committed, and this individual committed it. What I see is that the Attorney General's office is not presenting the cases properly before the magistrate judge.
Why is that? Is it because there aren't enough of the prosecutors, or?
It's all you require many different parts to move in order to actually go to court. And that is one part of it. The victims' advocates, the review of the police reports, the time of that attorney versus having to switch over and go into court when he should be reading those magistrate complaints and preparing the motion.
Okay.
You know, all those things, your checklist when you go before the judge, and I must say that our judiciary has some of the toughest judges on the bench. The magistrate judge.
Them.
Yes,
Yeah,
Justice Judge Jonathan Kwan. He is one of the toughest judges on that bench, and he's the one that sees these people being brought in on first appearances and release conditions. When he isn't being given the proper presentation that this person is a danger to the community, because this is what our file shows, because the AG's office has access to the criminal justice system. It shows all the priors, everything that the AG needs to put together and explain it to the judge why this person is a danger to the community, or is not going to show up at the next hearing. Those are the two basic standards that the judges use in order for the release. But we have a magistrate judge, which is intended to make things go quicker. If I get in there, we are going to, first of all, get the prosecutors back. You need people you need at least 15 to 18 to be comfortable.
At a minimum.
At a minimum.
Okay.
And then properly review the case files and make the presentation to the magistrate judge why this individual should not be released, should be on ankle monitor if the judge is even considering that, where they can quickly assess where he's at and bring him in. Court probation is very good about that. And law enforcement, they pick them up very quickly if there's a warrant on somebody. Those are the logistics of getting these cases properly presented to the judiciary so that they can act. Judges cannot be acting as a prosecutor. They have to listen to what's before them, and we have very good defense lawyers. The public defender's office, the alternate public defender's office, they're sharp, and they do more with less. And then, our private bar as well, we in the private bar also advocate for the clients. But there's big problems going on, and you hit it right on the head. The prosecutor may be good, but if he's being spread too thin, and then the burnout factor, that's why it becomes a snowball effect. When you are down below the minimum number, that means that all these other left prosecutors that are still there, remaining prosecutors, have to double up their case files. And you're going from looking at the magistrate's complaint to going into court for a release order to dealing with a motion that the defense lawyer may bring, let alone the speedy trial assertions. Mm-hmm. Those are the ones that say you got to go to trial within 45 days, the person's incarcerated 60 days if they're free. So he is mismanaging the office, and that is seen by the fact that these prosecutors are not leaving to go off island and to move on to bigger, better things. They're leaving because they're disenchanted. They're being told to do things that they don't feel good about doing. Mm-hmm. When we were there, morale was number one. Our office was my mom, my aunt, my family would come in, and they would make the office a home for all the staff. We would have nice luncheons. We would get everybody together because team building is part of a successful attorney general, let alone management, wherever you're at, right? People have to want to work there. They have to feel good about working there. They have to look forward to the special events that we can celebrate together. And you're all trying to make Guam better. And that's the most important thing about the AG's office, is the morale. You got to keep us together.
You know, according to our sources within the Attorney General's office, who of course speak to us on condition of anonymity because of, well, they don't want to be lashed out against.
Yes.
Yeah,
the reprisal.
The reprisal from.
You say Attorney General, so people just back off and say, I don't want that trouble.
So according to our sources within the Attorney General's office, right before, or for the years prior to Kandit's breaking of the story of how Christine Tenorio, the former head of the Sex Crimes Prosecution Division, prior to her resigning, and then this exodus of prosecutors happening following that. So we broke that story, but prior to breaking that story, the Attorney General had not met with the prosecution division even one time.
Shocking. I had an open door policy when I was there. If I come back in, it will be open. I was open to the public, and especially the troops in that office. I think we left with about 150. That was the staff number, the FTEs. I understand that they're at 250 now. So between the time I left, 2007, and today, the Attorney Generals, they call them generals, have increased the number of staff. But the output is not getting any better than what we were doing. So if there's a large staff that I'm going to be facing to bring in, we're going to be looking at organizational structure. Is this really helping the voters, the people of Guam? Protection. That is the number one priority of any Attorney General. I don't care about government corruption. I don't care about consumer protection. If the Manamco, if people in their homes can't sleep at night because they're hearing somebody break into their house, or their daughters are being raped because of going just to a skate park or something like that, the Attorney General isn't doing his job. And I have already started speaking with potential chiefs of police that might take over in the next administration to what we can do if I get in and he gets in to coordinate an attack on the criminals.
Let's talk about that, because you talked about the burnout factor of prosecutors, and I actually want to get back to that burnout factor in prosecutors in just a little bit. But what about the burnout factor with police? Because we have sources in the police department as well, police officers who have been on the beat for years and years, who tell us that they're just so tired of arresting these criminals and rearresting the criminals, and they know that these are bad people who are just going to reoffend.
Demoralizing.
They're demoralized. You know, at some point, you know, are you concerned that they're going to stop doing their job? Because, and what are you going to do about it when you get elected?
Hopefully, if I am fortunate enough to get the trust of the voters, the first people that I'm going to meet, the governor, the chief of police, and all the other law enforcement agencies, whether it's customs, you know, by the way, rev and tax auditors, they're considered law enforcement.
Yes.
So there's a whole group of people that are called law enforcement on Guam. Those are the people that make the cases for the Attorney General. They know how to put their cases together. They're motivated to put the cases together. I will guarantee you, as the Attorney General, they will be prosecuted. And if there's a reason why it can't be prosecuted, we're going to issue reports. For example, the public auditor. He takes the time to put that together. We will give him the respect that his report is due by either acting on it civilly, criminally, both, whatever. Or if there's a problem with it, I will meet with the the public auditor, and we'll put together a report where he agrees that maybe this is something that required a little bit more investigation, review. But like with Doris Brooks, when she was a public auditor, most of our government corruption prosecutions came from her. Mm-hmm. Her auditors, her accountants, and so forth. So I can guarantee the people of Guam that you will see a change very quickly. I'm not talking about first 100 days, which a lot of politicians like to do. I'm talking within the first week to 2 weeks to 3 weeks. The people that have left that office and the people that are still there, because I know and hired many of those people that are still in that office, they're calling me. They're telling me what's going on in that office. What you're saying is your sources, I can confirm. And when I read your article several months ago, that's when I started getting these calls from people saying that you need to run. You need to change what's going on in here. I've heard it. I've heard it from the prosecutors that have left, that he hasn't talked to them, or they go talk to him. They're able to finally talk to him, and he brushes them off. Again, this is not a he said, she said, tit for tat thing. The end product of any Attorney General is to help the people of Guam. If you don't help the people of Guam, there's no why even be in that office?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Before we get to government corruption, because I do want to turn our attention to public corruption,
Yes.
I want to ask. I remember when you were the Attorney General, sending a message to the criminals was a big deal. There were precedents that you wanted to send,
That's right.
and so you did. So I'm wondering, are there messages that you want to send in the prioritization of violent crimes?
Yes.
Are you going to be harder on the sexual assaults and the rapes? What's your priority list?
Of course, the violence.
Okay.
The violence is going to be the first group of crimes that have to be addressed, and have to be addressed decisively and publicly. There have to be certain cases where it cannot be pled out. We're going to take you to trial unless you take our first offer. And that will be the last and only offer. Other cases may be worthy of that, but the victim must agree.
Okay.
In all equations, the victim must agree. And there's ways to improve. I've heard victims out there saying that they called me for the first police report. I've never heard from them again. And I keep calling their office and are answering. I had a rule when I was in the Attorney General. You can ask any Attorney General staff that was there at the time, and even the prosecutors. If that phone rings more than twice, you're gonna have to see the AG about it. I would walk the halls.
Oh, thank you.
And I would seriously, and if I heard a third ring on it, I would go over to that desk and say, our policy is to pick that phone up in the second ring. We are going to, and with the internet and all these social medias and things, we're going to design it so that these people have direct access to the Attorney General. If they can't get what they need from the investigator, the victim's advocate, anybody in my office, is their reflection upon me. And if the people trust me to put me in that office, then I will come down on the staff professionally. And it's customer service.
Can you run some government agencies while you're at it then?
Well, we start in our own home, right?
Yeah.
So the victims that are hurt, of course there's victimless crimes like drugs, considered a victimless crime. But at the same time, the repercussions of it that we're seeing transfer over to the robberies, thefts, things like that, is because of the drug problems out of control. So, but definitely, like you said, the sex crimes, the personal crimes, assaults, murders. Oh my goodness, you're seeing almost every other week now finding bodies.
Yeah.
It's reminding me of what I understand the 70s was like with the heroin when it was out of control. And then the ascension into the laundering of monies. I want to work closer with the DEA because they are well built and equipped to handle the drug world. Not just the users is usually at our level, but the actual prosecution of these people that have thousands, millions of dollars that they're bringing in annually from what's going on in the drug world out there.
So more of a collaboration with the federal government. Okay.
Exactly. It has to be done.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because as a segue to government corruption, there's the topic of police corruption, and I know we all understand that that most of our law enforcement, these are good guys. These are good ladies and gentlemen who have done a great job. But I'm not sure if you're too familiar with Johnny and my background, how we were victims of police corruption in years back.
We cannot tolerate that as a law enforcement, criminal justice system player. Social workers like to use the word play, participant, player, things like that. If there's corruption within the law enforcement, we need to root it out and to address it. They have internal affairs. The Attorney General's office has its own investigators, independent and separate from the police department.
Okay.
I take those things seriously.
Okay.
You cannot, and especially you can't be putting these guys into court being witnesses when they're beating up the defendants, violating people's civil rights, sort of thing.
Yes.
You got to play by the rules, and that's the Constitution, and I firmly believe in that rule of law, the whole idea. So my grandfather was a reserve police officer, Scotty Moylan, for decades. He went from his business in the daytime and drove his patrol vehicle at night. I have a very fond and high respect for any lawman. I don't care if you're customs, you wear that badge. Not only do you receive the respect of the community from it and the Attorney General, but you hold a solemn duty to protect the public. I don't care if it's a Manamco, I don't care if it's a bodybuilder. If that person's rights are being violated, or especially a woman, as a police officer, you must protect them. And obviously the police officers aren't attorneys. My telephone number was available after hours to every police officer for an AG consultation, because
Okay.
oftentimes when they're in the field, they want to get clear, is this a civil matter or should I be doing something
Sure.
criminally? And there's always a very fine line between things. So I'm going to reinstate that. They usually call it the on-call prosecutor. But for better control, especially the way the AG's office is running right now, I will take direct control of evening, after-hours type of issues. Those are just small parts of the whole puzzle that we can put back together so that the end result of people getting protected is restored to that office. The AG is the chief law enforcement and the chief legal officer of the government of Guam and is directly and personally responsible for the safety of our community. You know, murders, rapes, assaults, those are all top targets for my prosecution. When I select the chief prosecutor, that person will be a reflection about the new public policy that has come to the AG's office if I'm lucky enough to be in that position again.
The Mandania Drug Task Force started as a collaboration between the federal and agencies and the Guam Police Department so they could share information, and for some time it was working. And then, of course, there was a point where it was just Guam Police Department officers, and the feds had actually stepped away. And you know, the suspicion is that there was just all this hanky-panky going on.
Mm-hmm.
Allegations of police corruption, right?
Yeah.
And so, if you're going to bring back a collaboration, how do you monitor it so that it doesn't get out of control like it did with Mandania?
Close relationship between the chief of police, and I'm talking about even the customs, the chief there,
Okay.
the airport police chief, anyone that's head of their law enforcement effort there, working closely, and I'm talking about 24-hour access to the Attorney General,
Okay.
so that we can discuss issues. People die when they get shot in the back or by their people that they thought they trusted. So I can understand why the feds would want to distance themselves if they feel that there's corruption within our local system. The Attorney General, again, being the chief legal officer, chief law enforcement officer, needs to make sure that our officers are clean. We will run out anyone that's corrupt. And unfortunately, we're all human.
Sure.
So if a mistake is made, they have to be detected and then gotten out there, because those guys are the ones that are carrying the weapons, and ultimately we want to trust the ones that we call at night to help us.
Thank you for saying so. Personally, I appreciate what you're saying about this, and I'm certain that Johnny Rosario appreciates this as well. It's one of the main reasons Kandit got together was because of our experience with the Mandania Drug Task Force in its corrupt phase.
Yeah.
Let's talk about public corruption. You broached a bit earlier about your relationship with Doris Flores Brooks, Guam's first elected public auditor.
And a multi-term senator,
Yes.
a great individual. She is a person, a woman that stood up for good government, clean government, very, very intelligent in the way that she approached issues. And I think we all recognize that, the thief may steal hundreds, thousands, whatever, from an individual, but the individual that's controlling the hundreds of millions of dollars, and we're almost close to $1 billion now. When I was legislative counsel, our budget at the 24th, 25th, 26th Guam legislatures, I was just mentioning this to Senator Brown, we were looking at $350, $400 million. That was the entire Guam budget. The budget of the government of Guam now is, what, almost $1 billion.
I think it might be $1 billion
Right,
now.
and especially with all the pandemic money that has now come in. That type of theft that occurs is arguably worse than the guy that goes and steals from the cash register.
For sure. For sure.
So
But they never go to jail.
Yeah, exactly.
Are they going to go to jail under your administration?
Well, we did that when I was there, and that is my proof that we will continue to put it before the juries for them to decide, and then for the judges to take appropriate action. I can remember back then when we were pleading with the judges to please send the message out with this government corruption. With that message comes reaction from everyone else who's a certifying officer, everyone else that has control of our tax dollars. That's what you get charged for at DMV. That's why the charges go up in the government, because there's waste and inability to provide the health care, education, public safety. It all has to be paid for. And when government officials are corrupt, either pocketing the money or so incompetent that the GWA, Remember when that telemarketer, that person called in and said to transfer the money
Yes.
into the account?
Yes, I remember
Oh
that.
my goodness. What did they do to that person?
I can't remember.
You know, it's just the idea that how much money was lost. It was like more than 100,000 or something of that nature, a huge sum of money,
Yeah.
because the procedures weren't followed. And this is where Doris Brooks came in. She's an accountant. She recognized that there's a system that we pay these people good money for in order to protect our money. And if you steal it, that's one thing. If you're so incompetent that you're not certifying the funds properly and releasing the taxpayers' money, there's a consequence to it. So,
Well,
yeah.
let me. I want to give some props to the current public auditor, B.J. Cruz, who has released at least a couple of audits regarding emergency procurement in the government of Guam during the pandemic that weren't so good for the administration, that pointed out irregularities. Basically, what B.J. Cruz was saying was the administration, the governor's office, etc., had broken the law, despite. And then there was the audit that was specific to the governor's son-in-law, who was her legal counsel, who because of regarding the Pacific Star Hotel, which had a 13 or 30 million, I can't remember, a multi-million-dollar note with the Bank of Guam. And nothing from Attorney General Levin Camacho.
Yes.
What is going on?
First of all, I have a lot of respect for our public auditor. He was a chief justice, a judge, a senator. You know, B.J. Cruz has so much experience and life experience and government experience behind him. When he issues a report that raises such a serious red flag on potential criminal and civil and losses to we the taxpayers, we the people of Guam, and the Attorney General doesn't even give him the respect of investigating it and issuing a report. That's why I said earlier, what I'm going to implement because of this Attorney General is the public needs to have confidence again in the Attorney General, not in the public auditor. He's been doing his job as long as he's held that office. The Attorney General hasn't taken those reports and identified and applied the law equally. This is not when I was back in the AG's office, people would always say that, hey, it's all personal, he's just going after people. No, look at the trail of where it came from. Public auditor was the one that first brought out the government corruption issues. It was a separate group of lawyers that I had dedicated to the government corruption division that analyzed it. In BJ's case, there's many red flags that were thrown in that pandemic. The potential abuse of government taxpayer funds. Even Ms. Afaji, Claudia Afaji, she didn't want to touch it. She was, at least according to the media accounts, and I'm not in that position that was aware of it, but the media accounts are indicating that she wasn't consulted. Just because it's a pandemic doesn't mean that all the rules go out the window. You know, especially like, for example, that the use of the National Guard, that's martial law. When you bring out armor and machine guns and tell people on the road to stop, your grandmother being faced with Army National Guard troops, it's shocking that the Attorney General didn't go into the courts. That's a declaration of martial law. It requires the court's action. There's a time period that you can do it, a declaration, and the legislature gets involved. She was doing that during this thing. The pandemic,
I wondered the same thing, so thank you for confirming that.
When I heard it, I was just going, what are they doing? Why isn't the Attorney General, the protector of the public, out there with the court, asking the court, is this legal? I don't think so. Bringing the issue up. AG can't do everything himself. I recognize that. You need the courts and the juries. In this case, with the public auditor, there was money involved, a lot of money. That was the foreclosure that people were obligated to pay their bills. There was no tourism going on. Everything was shut down. What was the paper trail that led up to this occurring? When you don't follow the procurement rules, that's the first red flag. And BJ has a report, at least one report on that. Then we know about the other incident that occurred with the presidential suite. What is going on? That is, you let people in the public see that stuff and no action is taken by the Attorney General. It's like the demoralization of the police. You demoralize the public that the people you trust to be your law enforcement are going to do something about it.
Are you concerned that this Attorney General has, for lack of a better term, been covering for the governor and her administration? And if you are, do you anticipate when you're elected reviewing these matters and possibly taking action?
The Attorney General must treat the governor with respect. And give her, in this case, the benefit of the doubt. That's why I say when you have the public auditor, which is a watchdog, you have the Attorney General, which is another watchdog, a check and balance in our system, and they're part of the executive branch, you must question that government official because the laws must be applied equally. Again, the public auditor is issuing these reports. You go, you do your investigation, you call the witnesses, you give the governor the ability to try to explain what was going on. And that's why I said, when you have Claudia Ekfaji, the head of the General Services Agency that should have been overseeing all those procurements during this pandemic emergency period, and she said that she wasn't being consulted, and it sounded like she didn't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole after everything had happened.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have the public health director saying that she didn't sign documents
Yes.
and resigning after that.
Yes.
Of course, retiring or however they want to coax it. Those are the red flags that a law enforcement officer, like a police officer, when he starts seeing suspicious behaviors, things that are red flags that are going up, you need to go forward with it. And that's the job of an attorney in the Attorney General's office and ultimately the Attorney General to do something about it. And if you don't do something about it, issue a report. You know, get the input from the public auditor to say, I disagree with you or I agree with you, things like that.
Sometimes public corruption doesn't come straight from the top. A lot of times it's in these mid-level areas of the government. There's just so much money that each agency has to play around with.
And depending, like you pointed out, the Guam Police Department, the corruption there, it's not about money necessarily. It's about your civil rights.
Yeah.
And that is more important than money. Your ability to be free, your ability to not be afraid of criminals, your ability not to have government officials locking you down without the proper authority. And that's why you heard the legislatures rumbling at that time. Hey, wait a minute, we got to come in here and start making laws to temper certain actions of the governor. Well, where was the Attorney General? Where was he coming out and saying that, okay, this is the legal opinion, we've analyzed it on this, and move forward. Another problem with this Attorney General is he's not enforcing all the laws. He thinks that he has the ability to take a legislative passed statute and deep six it, to trash it. You cannot do that as the Attorney General. You have a solemn obligation. Every law that the legislature passes must be treated as the law. I don't care what my opinion is. I don't care what the Attorney General or current Attorney General's opinion is. You enforce it, and if you disagree with it, take it to the judiciary to decide whether or not it should be enforced.
Or to the legislature.
Or have it changed with the list. Exactly.
Yeah.
But until such time, you have no right to ignore it. So.
What about over the past few years, we've seen that the Attorney General has, on contracts, the Attorney General is supposed to review for legality and form. It's become a ministerial duty. This Attorney General has made it a rubber stamp.
Yeah.
What can you do? What can you do to make it less of a rubber stamp so that...
Well, what did we do?
Okay.
Back when I served for the 4 years, we had Deborah Rivera and Joe Guthrie were taking every government contract, and I told them, I'm not going to sign it until you guys review it.
Okay.
And then you're going to... And we used to have a period of time where they would come into the office and they would hand me the contracts, and I would look at it, and I would look at them, review it, and say, okay, have you checked this on it? Being a lawyer myself, I could also see these issues, and I would address the other attorneys that did the preliminary review.
Okay.
That's one issue. The other issue, when contracts are needed, like air conditions needed at schools or whatever, I let the government officials call me directly. My assistant, she would give me, hey, the director of this agency is calling because they have a contract that's been sitting over there and they need it done. I would call them right in the office and quickly get that resolved. Either problem identified, send it back, or approve it and send it off to the governor. So I was a marketing major at Notre Dame. So the University of Notre Dame, and to me, customer is king. Mm-hmm. It's not just being a lawyer and knowing your stuff. It's when that person who barely finished high school says that this officer, took my money when they pulled me over, and I don't know what to do. That's where you take your abilities as an elected official, the Attorney General, an attorney, to help them. I feel very strongly about that, and I'm going to do that again when I'm in that AG's office. We got a lot more people now. I can turn a lot of those people into customer service type attendants to help process in these cases. Of course, there's complaints that come in that, especially when it's a defendant complaining, and is really guilty or something like that. But I mean, the common person that comes in, child support. I've been trying to turn in this application. I turned it in a year ago. Nothing's happening. I used to go into the investigators at the child support division and light a fire under them, because I would take that actual submission of a child support request and say, why haven't you acted on that? You know, we're here to serve the people. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a candidate. We did it back in the AG's office. We created the customer service forms that went directly out to the child support custodial parents. How are we doing? And I would get them. It wouldn't be the division head, Bobby Cepeda. I would look at them. And if I saw something, then I would talk to Bobby. What's up?
You're giving me very good segues, because we were supposed to seg, and thank you for doing it for me, from public corruption over to government operations and transparency.
Yes.
And so you talked about the things you would do administratively to make the AG's office more efficient. Now, what would you do about, you know, there are areas of government operations where the Attorney General has to or ought to be involved, one of them being, you know, in providing proper legal guidance to government agencies. Another area would be, you know, holding government agencies or directors' feet to the fire when they're doing something that is illegal or extraordinary, unethical.
You hit the nail right on the head. Why are people suing government officials and agencies, having to hire their own lawyers and pay money? Like you hear in the United States, where I lost my house because I got you know, raked through the coals on this thing and had to defend myself. Sunshine Act requests, open government law. Why is this Attorney General sitting by, letting these lawsuits go, and not going to the government agency, the director, the government official, and doing an independent analysis of whether or not they violated the open government law for their meeting and cancel that meeting as the law requires, or on a Sunshine Act? Why didn't you get on the documents? You know what I mean? Things like that.
It's become a very big deal over the past few years.
It is. And, you know, people like Mr. Leon Guerrero, you know, he goes out and pays good money to have to hire a lawyer to do what the Attorney General should be doing. And again, at the end of the day, a report should issue. You know, maybe this Sunshine Act complaint wasn't as valid as it could be, or maybe it was. And maybe the government official thought they'd be cute by just ignoring it and say, oh, chase me if you can, get your own lawyer.
But that's not cute at all, because that's a direct violation of the law.
Yes, and abuse of their position. Because that was part of the salary.
Now it's no longer a problem.
Yes.
So I remember that. Thank you for reminding me. The last thing that I wanted to ask you about is, so, you know, we don't have a 20, 30-year archive here at Kandit. We just started 4 years ago. So a lot of what we have to do in understanding, in reporting about, you know, allegations against defendants, you know, trying to figure out who's been
pick up the pieces
indicted.
From somewhere.
We have to pick, we have to go to the court, and we have to pay $1 per page.
I will guarantee you, if I get into office, that every news organization and journalist, let alone members of the public that may have a legitimate right, the victims, to have those court papers, because everything's on PDF now. Everything's scanned. The court was beautiful on how the pandemic has now pushed them into the PDF everything, electronically getting the documents. I will give all the medias every document that can be done, not within a Sunshine Act request, but because we are government employees at service to the public. And guess who gets our message out? People like you. All the medias. They not only have a right, freedom of the press, to report information, but they also have a right, in my mind, to get the documents that are public documents.
Thank you.
So that they can disseminate it to the public. When a murderer has been picked up and the Attorney General's office has filed something, there's a good that comes out of it, that disseminate it to the public. Let them look at it. The victims should be getting those documents quickly. They should be the first ones getting the document, you know?
Yeah.
So I commit myself to the victims, especially the victims, women, the Manamko, children. I will be putting those individuals in the AG's office that is responsible for contacting them to be contacting them and to stay in contact with them. And not responding will not be tolerated again under an administration, a Moylan administration of that AG's office.
Will you ask Rochelle Canto and Christine Tenorio and Peter Santos to come back and work for you?
I will recruit them, and if they wish, they are welcome.
All right.
in office that I would head.
Very nice. I think even Jeremiah Luther left. Yeah, there's a bunch of
There's a
names
group of them.
that I'm
Yeah.
forgetting, but
And we will
of
bring back more prosecutors from the states. Obviously, our preferences for our locals, but you don't just grow attorneys. You know, they got to
Sure.
go through, they got to get barred, and then they got to get trained. So I had a whole staff when I left that office that were from off island. I look forward to doing good interviews and recruitment. So
Excellent.
yeah,
Excellent.
we will bring that office back up to where it should be. Relief, recovery, reform. Fix that office.
Well, Mr. Moylan, I'm done with my questions for you. But this has been an exciting interview, and I appreciate your candor, that you were so candid with us about everything that you want to do if elected Attorney General. This is the part of the program where I ask you to look straight into your camera and to speak directly to our audience and ask them to give them whatever message you want to give to them, and ask them to vote for you.
Thank you. People of Guam, my name is Douglas Moylan. I served as the Attorney General before. I have 30 years of experience as the Attorney General. And
This right here.
I wish to serve you again. I thank all those people that have contacted me, voicing their support. I am humbled by it. And I live by my word when I served from 2003 to 2007. I intend to do that again. I think anyone that knows me knows that I'm not the nicest person, but when you're a lawyer, you have to advocate for your client. And I will advocate for you, the people of Guam, and I will be personable and hear you out. That was a very big, very important to me when I served as the Attorney General before. I will do it again. It's a team effort that I will put together a group of dedicated professionals and have our existing staff at the Attorney General's serve you. That will be and will remain the standard of a Moylan Administrative Attorney General's office. Thank you, Troy.
Thank you, General. My joke to everyone I come across when we talk about the Attorney General's race is that if Doug Moylan is elected Attorney General, I'm not even going to speed. You will not see me going beyond 35 miles per hour anywhere.
Troy, thank you. Thank you for that. You know, rule of law, that's what we all appreciate. Everybody gets treated the same, right?
Thank you. You know what? I appreciate that. Earlier in the, I was looking at, there's a lot of really good comments here. So you go back to the, after the show, you know, whenever maybe if you're preparing to go to sleep or whatever, look at these comments. You put a smile on your face. And Johnny Rosario says, Biba Doug. Yeah.
Biba for all of us.
Yeah. Biba for all of us. Thank you so much, Attorney General Doug Moylan. Guam's first elected Attorney General from 2003 to 2007. He is running to be your Attorney General again. I don't know why, but the Attorney General candidates are on the ballot in the primary election, and then they'll be on the ballot again in the general election.
Yeah.
And so go and vote. Go and vote this Saturday, starting at 7 a.m. at precincts throughout the island, and the election closes at 8 p.m. This Saturday. That's August 27, 2022, throughout precinct stations around Guam. For Kandit News, I'm Troy Torres. Good night.